Hi, I'm Jen.
I'm Sophia.
And I'm Serena.
And you're listening to Every Rom Com, the podcast where we have fun taking romantic comedies seriously.
This week on Every Rom Com, we're finishing our summer romance series with a trip to camp.
We'll talk about summer camp movie tropes and compare them to real-life camp experiences.
And we'll discuss a cult classic of absurdist comedy with an all-star cast, Wet Hot American Summer. Hey everybody, welcome back.
Hello.
Hi.
So we're doing today Wet Hot American Summer, and Sophia, if I recall, you haven't been to camp, right?
Not really. I had a short camp experience, as part of like a 3 days of school or something. We got to go in junior high. And
outdoor ed. Yeah, I remember outdoor ed.
Outdoor ed. There it is. Yeah. I still have my knot heads from that.
Was it like sixth grade?
Yeah.
Yes. I loved it. I had such a great time. And but that was it for like camp. But I thought about it later as I was thinking about this. I'm like, I did youth group lock-ins. So those were like a weekend in a church and listened to a lot of like there was music and there was teachings, and I gave a couple talks over the years, and there were different teams, and it was a lot of fun. But like, definitely, I didn't realize at the time, I'm so naive, but there's definite like making out in the pews in the evening and stuff like that. There's people sneaking out. I had no idea till later. Because I guess I wasn't one of those lucky few.
Yeah, I'm about the same as you. I had outdoor ed, and then an aborted attempt to go to Girl Scout day camp, where all the girls made fun of me because I looked like a boy and said, "There's a boy on the bus," and so I quit. And so I quit camp like right after that because it was terrible. I can't even remember the actual camp day. It must have been like traumatic or something. And I told Jenny Wozniak I couldn't go back because the price of oil was too high, which made no sense. I was like, anyway, that's my big camping experience. But like Serena, like when we were talking about doing this movie, you said that you'd been a counselor at camp.
I had, for 3 summers, actually. Quite extensive camp experience. I was never a camper myself, but I started working at a summer camp in Delavan, actually, which I had no idea existed. And Delavan's just a town over from like where we grew up. And I had no idea this camp was there. It's an inner city camp for kids from Chicago that come up and spend a week to 2 weeks at this camp. And yeah, I think I started doing that when I was either 19 or 20 when I started. And it was it was life-changing for me, to be honest. It was definitely like some of the best summers of my life. I still have lifelong friends that I made. I'm still in contact with a lot of the campers. As years went on, like they, grew up and started, with Facebook and social media, like remembered us and like friended us. And I personally haven't seen campers. I've seen a lot of my fellow counselors over the years. Yeah. We've stayed in contact, but I do know some other counselors have kept in contact with their campers and have hung out with them and visited them. So it was definitely an important part of my life.
So like at this camp, were they like by a lake or like was it in the woods? Okay.
Yes, it was that the camp was called House in the Wood, not just one wood, which we of course nicknamed House in the Hood because it was of course an inner city camp for kids. It was on a lake. We had swimming, boating, campcraft, nature. Like it was a traditional camp. Everything was very traditional of how the day was set up. And, even the counselors, it had a lot of international staff. So we had a lot of, which I loved, which was one of my favorite parts of it. We had a lot of staff from Australia, New Zealand, England, Scotland, Europe.
Wow.
Yeah. So South America, we had a couple of a Brazilian. So yeah, we had a great staff. It was super fun, super international. And yeah, it was like this little microcosm on Lake Delavan that like I said, I had no idea existed.
For
until,
real. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very bizarre because like, obviously, like, to us, Delavan and Lake Geneva, like they're just normal towns, but to people who are from the inner city or other countries, like that's like the middle of nowhere, like, which was so bizarre to me because people were literally like afraid or just like really thought we were nowhere land. And I was like, this isn't nowhere land. Like there aren't any bears, but even some of the like simple wildlife, like raccoons and birds and bugs and things like that were so normal growing up. And natural, like people were really like weirded out by it or like scared, or it was just something that isn't in their everyday life. So I kind of took that for granted that I had quote unquote grown up in nature, and that a lot of people don't, and don't have that kind of seeing fireflies and lightning bugs and stargazing and being able to go on the lake every day. Like those are just things that I took for granted that a lot of people don't get to experience during their childhood, which is why camp is so important.
So I have one more question about your camp experience. Like, did you have a specific like role, like kind of thing that you taught or did, or were you just like just having a cabin of kids or something?
I did, yeah. So our camp was split into cabin counselors and program counselors. So cabin counselors were basically like the one, they were like the parents almost. You were the ones who like got up with them, like took them to all of their activities. And then the program counselors were the ones who like taught those activities, whether it was nature or swimming or whatnot. So they almost ran like a classroom, and you were always with your same cabin. So you were like with them, and during certain classes you had to stay with them, like swimming or boating where you needed like an extra adult. But at other classes like nature, art, you could just drop them off and then you had like free time. So it was very like parental, the roles. And then actually my last year I was head counselor. I was actually like the boss.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I had like I think the title was like unit director. So I was the boss of all of the cabin counselors. So they all like reported to me, and then I reported to the director and the assistant director.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah, big deal. Big deal for like a 22-year-old or 23-year-old.
Sure.
I had so much responsibility. Probably the most responsibility I've had in my adult life. Well, I guess.
I don't know. You're a captain of a boat.
That's true.
And
that's true. Now
you keep people from drowning, or I don't know. It's
very
wild.
Similar, actually. A lot of those skills that I learned at summer camp being a counselor have like translated to how my working life now.
So I look forward to hearing about some of your camping experiences during the conversation about the movie. So whenever you want to throw something in, great.
Yeah, for sure.
So before we get started with today's episode, just a few notes. Okay, so first, unlike most episodes, we've decided not to have a spoiler section for this movie. And that's because there are a lot of individual plot threads, and they're woven together in a way that it would be like more confusing than it's worth to have a spoiler section. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, see the movie first before listening to the podcast.
As usual, we'd like to remind you that you can follow the podcast on social media. Our Facebook page is Every Rom Com podcast and blog. Our Instagram is at Every Rom Com, and our Twitter handle is at Every Rom Com Pod.
And finally, just a reminder that you can find the podcast at everyromcom.com. Send us feedback at everyromcom.com. And if you like what you hear, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. And now we're going to hear the trailer for Wet Hot American Summer.
This summer, take a trip back to 1981 with the special people who made summer camp unforgettable.
You guys aren't supposed to be out of your bunks. You're in trouble.
The camp director.
4 campers are stuck in the ropes course. I meant to tell you about that yesterday. Could you get to it now?
The counselors.
Wait for me, Abby Bernstein. Wait for me, my darling.
Wait. I just want to take off my shirt.
The kitchen staff.
Finish up the taters. I'm gonna go fondle my sweaters.
Come on, what? You said you were gonna go fondle your sweaters.
No, I didn't.
The water sports.
Hey, Andy, can I take out the water bus?
Sure.
The nature hikes.
Out! Out!
And of course, who can forget the sex, the muggings, the cover-ups, the malaria, the psychotherapy.
Hello.
And the friendships that last a lifetime.
We want you to be the guest of honor at our wedding next week.
From USA Films and creators of TV's The State.
A renegade piece of Skylab heading right for the camp.
Oh my God.
It could kill us all.
Janeane Garofalo, David Hyde Pierce, Paul Rudd, Christopher Maloney, and Molly Shannon.
Andy, have you seen my swimming buddy?
I was busy.
It's your job to make sure kids don't drown. Where are we going?
To a big secret pizza party?
Wet, hot American summer.
Unbelievable. I'd never seen it before.
Oh,
That was my first time watching it.
really?
Yep.
Oh man. So yeah, the trailer is actually much more normal than the movie for once.
Yeah.
Even if it's weird. I think there's a lot of sight gags in this movie too. Like there's a lot of physical humor. So like if you can watch it, it's a lot funnier. But yeah, I dug it.
Indeed. Well, so this was my first time watching Wet Hot American Summer that came out in 2001. I have zero recollection of it, like trailers, anything. But
Well, we'll get to why that is in the interesting facts.
Aha. Okay. Well, I learned that it's directed by David Wain, written by Michael Showalter and David Wain, starring Janeane Garofalo, yay, David Hyde Pierce, yay, Michael Showalter, Marguerite Moreau, Paul Rudd, and so many more.
Okay, so the basic premise of this movie, it's the year 1981, and it's the last day of camp at Camp Firewood, and a number of counselors are looking for love and or sex. And in the main story, a somewhat dorky counselor named Coop is trying to get together with a pretty counselor named Katie, who is dating an asshole named Andy. And in addition to the main story, there are several other love stories, including one between the camp director and an astrophysicist with his own cabin near the camp, or a professor of astrophysics. I don't know. I think it amounts to about the same thing. The entire movie uses like absurdist humor and meta commentary on films and the movie cliches of the late 70s and the early to mid 80s.
Some interesting facts. It cost $1.8 million to make and grossed $295,000. So yikes. Was initially that sucks. Was initially only released in 2 theaters in New York. Eventually was released to about 20 more theaters. It later became a cult classic, starting with DVD release in 2002. Apparently the cast was paid very little. Paul Rudd told Entertainment Weekly, "I'm not sure I got paid. I'm not kidding. It was such a small production and stuff falls through the cracks." Despite the low pay, the cast had a lot of famous actors before they were famous. This was the first feature film role for Bradley Cooper. I had actually forgotten he was in this, so I was really surprised when he came on screen. I was like, whoa! And he actually probably became one of the more famous actors.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
And this was almost the first film role for Elizabeth Banks as well. And it was set in Maine, shot at Camp Towanda in Pennsylvania. And the cast and crew actually slept in the bunks at the camp. David Wain said the line between being at summer camp and making a movie about it was very gray. Actually, that was one of the things that I was like, it was so nostalgic for me because those cabins were the exact same cabins that we had, the exact same setup.
Nice.
Even the kids' little bunk beds. Like, oh my God, so cute. It was shot in spring. According to the behind the scenes documentary, it rained 24 out of the 28 days of filming.
God, it looked like hell. It looked like utter freezing hell.
The cast was drinking a lot. Garofalo told Entertainment Weekly, I was drunk 90% of the time. I was always punctual and I always knew my lines, but it was freezing and raining every night. So I put away a lot of whiskey.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And she doesn't drink anymore, I guess. Yeah. But like,
like that did her in.
Well, no, I don't know. I don't know if that was it, but like, yeah, like I think just so people know, like
that's funny. That's
Janeane Garofalo's okay.
Good.
The script was inspired by David Wain and Michael Showalter's real camping experience, and somewhat by the movie Meatballs that came out in 1979, starring Bill Murray. Eventually, the movie got a prequel and sequel series on Netflix, Wet Hot American Summer First Day of Camp, that came out in 2015, and Wet Hot American Summer 10 Years Later, that came out in 2017.
So Sophia, you already said this is like the first time you saw the film. So what was your impression of the film watching it for the first time?
I really didn't know that it was, I guess I knew it was kind of like spoofing, 80s camp films or whatever, but I didn't know that it's very much humor, like, and they talk about it in the commentary, like Meatballs and Airplane and, all those Mel Brooks films like Spaceballs and things like that. And so, I wouldn't say like I seek films out like that, but when they're on, they're so stupid, they're funny. So there was definitely a lot that I laughed at, but I was like, I can't. This is so terrible. But it was brilliant in its stupidity. So anyway.
And Serena, what about you? Like, when had you seen this film?
I think I did see it in the early 2000s. And like I said, it was really, I got a lot of the humor and I related to a lot of it because it is actually, even with the whole, over the top humor, it is a really good portrayal of what actually like goes on at summer camp, to be honest.
That's man, I will need details on this as we go through
later on.
Yeah. For me, like I don't know exactly when the first time I saw it was. Funny enough, though, like whenever it was, and it was a while ago, but when I saw it a while ago, I wasn't that into it for some reason. I think it might have been because someone was like, "Oh, it's the best movie, you got to see it," and then I watched it. I'm like, "This isn't the best movie," or something. Like, or I wanted it like. The absurd humor, like sometimes I like that, but sometimes like being so absurd and meta can like takes you away from relating to the characters a little bit, you know? Like it's hard to get emotionally invested when you know that it's kind of like, just gonna poke the air out of the whole situation a minute later. So, but I liked it more watching it for the podcast this time. And I think it's like because there's layers of jokes. Like there's scenes where like I didn't even notice there was a second joke in the same scene. You know what I mean? Like the line that Janeane Garofalo said in the trailer about the ropes course, like went right over my head at the time because there was so much else going on. Where she's like, "There's campers stuck in the ropes course. Like I meant to tell you about it yesterday." It's like, oh, those campers have been sitting there this whole time. Or just or physical comedy that is in the background that I didn't notice the first time. Anyway, like it grew on me for sure.
Yeah.
And so like in terms of why I thought about this for the podcast, like it's definitely not it wouldn't be called a rom-com. It would just be called a comedy, except that like a lot of what's going on in this movie is about couples. Like you've got several different couple storylines going on, and like in a lot of these comedies there's like similar types of absurd humor, like summertime comedies, like something like One Crazy Summer, for example. You've got a romantic core to it, right? And in One Crazy Summer that's treated a little more sincerely, but in this movie it's like that is also satirized. The whole romantic storyline is satirized too. Anyway, I thought it would be interesting to look at a comedy that has romantic elements. And it's in the summer, and it's at camp. So, I hope that's a good enough reason.
Yeah. I mean, Twister. So.
Yeah, I think this has more romantic comedy DNA than Twister, because, like, specifically in this movie, they kind of mock certain conventions of rom-coms.
For sure.
And we'll talk about that as we go through.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had to research the director and writers for this, because I didn't really know much of their work, but they've done a lot of work. The director's name is David Wain. And his first notable work was as a creator, writer, and director and actor on the MTV sketch comedy show The State, which ran from 1993 to 1995. Did either of you guys watch that ever?
No.
No.
Yeah, I watched one episode, the first one, just to get a feel for it for the show. It seemed a little bit Monty Python-esque. It had a lot of similar, where there'd be running gags that would go into other skits, and
Okay.
where there's a bunch of guys and one lady, and so the guys are dressing up as women all the time. So they reminded me a lot of Monty Python. The thing about The State, though, is that not only is the director and the other writer were on The State, but a lot of the other cast members were also from this comedy show. So, and they've worked together on numerous projects over the years. They're kind of one of those core groups of creators that kind of sticks together and makes other things. Wet Hot American Summer was David Wain's feature directing debut, and he also co-wrote it. After Wet Hot American Summer, which wasn't a success, they had a little trouble for a while. But eventually, David Wain went on to write and direct Role Models, which had Paul Rudd and Elizabeth Banks, who are also in this movie. Wanderlust, which had Paul Rudd and Jennifer Aniston. He co-wrote and directed They Came Together with Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler. And that is specifically a send-up of rom-coms. They Came Together is a full-on send-up of rom-coms.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, of course, he went on to direct Wet Hot American Summer, First Day of Camp, Wet Hot American Summer 10 years later. And he's done directing work on a number of other TV shows and movies as well. And he was also a writer on Mad TV. And in addition, he has 79 acting credits, including playing Yaron in Wet Hot American Summer, First Day of Camp. So he's done a lot of stuff. And the writers are, of course, again, David Wain and Michael Showalter. Michael Showalter also started out on The State as a creator, writer, and actor. Wet Hot American Summer was his first feature film writing job, and he also appears as the main character, Coop. And after Wet Hot American Summer, he wrote, directed, and starred in a movie called The Baxter in 2005. That's also a romantic comedy send-up, because the Baxter refers to the guy in the romantic comedies that the girl is engaged to or going to get married to, but it's the wrong guy, and she ends up with the lead of the romantic comedy instead.
Mm-hmm.
But so this movie is told from the perspective of the jilted fiance, basically. So it's kind of an interesting concept. Yeah. And he also, starred in that one. And then he co-wrote They Came Together. And then he also co-wrote and directed Hello, My Name is Doris with Sally Field and Max Greenfield. And that came out in 2015. And I watched the trailer for it. And I totally want to see it now, because it looks like it's kind of like a rom-com with an older lady and a younger guy. And I'm like, interesting.
It's been in my queue. I still haven't watched it yet, but that's
okay.
Without knowing who wrote and directed it, I just thought it looked good. Yeah.
And so he's done a lot of other stuff. He was obviously involved in the Netflix Wet Hot American Summer in writing the prequel and sequel to it. But he also directed, this I didn't know, he directed The Big Sick, which is one of the best rom-coms of probably the last 5 to 10 years. I don't remember when it came out, but of recent times. Mm-hmm. And he directed the Netflix movie, which is kind of an adventure romantic movie, Lovebirds, in 2020. And he's recently been doing work as a writer, an occasional director, and an actor on the TV show Search Party. He recently directed a movie, The Eyes of Tammy Faye. And he's done directing work on the shows Love and Grace and Frankie. And there's a movie he directed called Spoiler Alert, which is in post-production. So he's done just so much. He's done other stuff in writing and acting too. It's impossible to sum these people up. Okay, yeah. They're prolific. I'm tired just reading about their credits, to be honest. And then Michael Showalter also plays in the movie, as I mentioned before, the main role of Coop. So Gerald Coop Cooperberg, and he's a kind of a dorky counselor who's interested in the pretty girl. And he also plays later in the movie an MC at the talent show who's this corny comedian. So, yeah.
So random. We have Marguerite Moreau, played Katie, who is Coop's love interest, and she's also dating Andy the jerk. Her first work on IMDb was in her teens. She played a small role on The Wonder Years. And she also played Connie in all 3 Mighty Ducks movies. That's definitely where I remember her from the most. I guess I was a big Mighty Ducks fan. After Wet Hot American Summer, she did Queen of the Damned, which I totally remember. A rom-com called Easy, which was written and directed by a woman, also featuring Naveen Andrews. And she had recurring roles on Life as We Know It, The OC, Shameless, Grey's Anatomy, and she reprised her role of Katie for the 2 Wet Hot American Summer TV series on Netflix. She has continued to work steadily, mostly in smaller roles or projects.
And then there's Paul Rudd. My goodness, he had already been in Clueless and The Object of My Affection, as well as a number of other projects. And he said his role in Wet Hot American Summer helped him get cast in Anchorman. And for more information about Paul Rudd, check out our Clueless episode 5.
All right, so Janeane Garofalo, she plays Beth, the camp director. She started doing stand-up comedy in 1985. She worked in TV on The Ben Stiller Show from 1992 to 1995, Saturday Night Live from 1994 to 1995, and The Larry Sanders Show from 1992 to 1997. She's definitely, when I think of 90s comedians, Janeane Garofalo sticks out in my mind as like the pivotal female comedian for sure. Her breakout movie role as Vicky in Ben Stiller's featured directorial debut Reality Bites in 1994. And also before Wet Hot American Summer, she did The Truth About Cats and Dogs, which is one of my favorite rom-coms, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I love that movie.
All right.
And then she was in Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion in 1997. Great movie. The Matchmaker in 1997, and Mystery Men in 1999. So again, the 90s were super good for Janeane.
Yeah.
After Wet Hot American Summer, some roles include The West Wing, Ratatouille, 24, Criminal Minds, Suspect Behavior, Bad Parents, Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, Younger, and she has reprised her role as Beth for the Wet Hot American Summer Netflix series.
Okay. David Hyde Pierce, oh my goodness. He is Henry, who plays, I think it's an associate professor, because he comments about it later.
Don't rub it in, Sophia. Don't rub it in.
An associate professor of astrophysics. And at the time of the movie, he was considered the biggest name of all the actors since he played Niles on Frasier. And in the commentary, they do talk about like just everybody just wanted to watch him perform, and just they were so in awe of his comedic brilliance and his improv brilliance. Additional roles in films, he did Sleepless in Seattle, Wolf, and A Bug's Life. And after Wet Hot American Summer, he appeared in Down with Love, The Good Wife, and he was in the Wet Hot American Summer, before and after. So he's still performing, of course, still acting in films, and he's got a role in a TV series about Julia Child coming out. What fun.
That was just the scratching the surface of the cast. I'm going to run through a bunch of other people who are in the cast, kind of quick and dirty. And I'm not even going to tell you all the people who are awesome in this cast. So we've got Molly Shannon plays Gail, the emotional arts and crafts counselor. And she was already reasonably well known from Saturday Night Live, which she started on there in 1995. And she'd done the Superstar movie and appeared in Never Been Kissed. So she was pretty big. Amy Poehler is in this movie, playing Susie, one of 2 theater counselors. She was not very famous at the time. She'd been on Upright Citizens Brigade on TV and later went on to do Mean Girls, Parks and Rec. She started Saturday Night Live that same year, later in the year. And she starred with Paul Rudd and Wain and Showalter. They came together later. And Bradley Cooper, as we mentioned, this was his first film role. And of course, everyone knows him from the Hangover movies, Silver Linings Playbook, A Star is Born, and the voice of Rocket Raccoon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And he reprised his role for Wet Hot American Summer First Day of Camp, but he was replaced by Adam Scott for 10 years later. And they have Adam Scott say a line about how he got a nose job and nobody can recognize him.
That's awesome.
And then Michael Ian Black plays McKinley, who's Ben's love interest and another counselor. He was also an original member of the State with Wain and Showalter, and he's been in a lot of other projects with those guys. Christopher Maloney plays Gene, the camp chef, and he's later, I guess, became famous on Law & Order SVU. I don't watch that, but I guess he's one of the big guys, right?
Yep.
Okay. Elizabeth Banks, as we said, this is one of her early roles. She plays Lindsay, Andy's other love interest. And she went on to be in the 40-Year-Old Virgin, Zach and Miri Make a Porno. And she played Effie in The Hunger Games, which I didn't even realize. Did you guys know that was her?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
She was Effie. And then, so another couple people who are involved in the State are Ken Marino, who plays Victor, and Joe Lo Truglio, who plays Neil. And they kind of play buddies in the film. Ken Marino hasn't done a lot of other stuff that I recognized, but he's a very steady actor. Joe Lo Truglio went on to do Brooklyn Nine-Nine and a lot of other projects. And one other notable thing, so there's a camper character called Artie the Beekeeper Solomon, who's constantly on the radio. Like, that's his thing, the camp radio. There's a different actor playing the body and the voice. I guess like they had Sam Levine from Freaks and Geeks come in later to do the voice. So if you're like, this seems weird, that's what's going on. Or I recognize that voice. So, and there's just so many other people. There's other people from the State involved. A lot of recognizable faces. There's too much to talk about. So like Wet Hot American Summer, like the whole movie is, like we said, kind of a satire or like tribute to like camp or teen movies of the 70s and the 80s. And we see this as soon as we get into the opening credits.
Yeah, it really sets the tone for the whole film. I love those graphics that, you know, I don't know, they're not quite bubble letters, but that was such a 70s and 80s look.
You mean for the title card with like the title and the flag?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, not with the flag so much, but like with the you know, names of the director and the editor and like all that pop up right away. But you know, it's nighttime. They're around a campfire. All the counselors are there. They're singing, they're drinking, they're smoking, they're making out, and they're dancing, and there's air guitar, and there's ridiculous rock music, and their costumes right away are perfect. And I have to say, for all the rain in that film, like their hair looks great. Like everybody's, how did they keep it that way?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say about the opening credits shot too is like, it's already exaggerated. Like everything they're doing is just like slightly exaggerated from what you would see in another camp movie. Like they're laughing more broadly. They're drinking with more vigor. They're making out with more tongue. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Fantastic. And throughout the movie, there are all these slow-mo montage shots, and the soundtrack riffs on the music of the time. Original songs such as Higher and Higher were written by Craig Wedren and Theodore Shapiro. Both worked on The State and went on to do very prominent TV and film music. And Wedren also fronted the band Shudder to Think.
Oh, and just for Serena, Craig Wedren contributed a song to the Velvet Goldmine soundtrack.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Which song? Do you remember?
I don't know, but he's on. I think Shudder to Think did probably. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I know that band from. Like, what band is that? It's from Velvet Goldmine.
And the film is just filled with so many cliched plot lines, and sometimes they break the fourth wall to point them out. And listening to the commentary, director and writer, they were both very conscious of those choices and did them on purpose.
Oh yeah, you couldn't have done them on accident. No way.
No,
You couldn't have made like a thing like this is like a masterpiece of absurdity and meta shit. Like, yeah.
The whole movie takes place in a day. It's the last day of camp. And the absurdist comedy takes all these movie conventions to a ridiculously exaggerated place, as we've said, and we're just we'll keep talking about them. And
I forgot. The last day of camp, they actually they get really exact. It's like August 18th, 1981, 5:57 a.m.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. They do timestamps throughout the whole thing, and it's like huge chunks of activity will happen, and they'll be like, 5 minutes later, and it's you're like, but I think that's also part of that cliche where it's like, how can you, this is supposed to be one day, how can all of this, like, yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh yeah, and did we mention the physical comedy yet?
Well, that there's a lot of it. I mean,
yeah. I didn't even notice how much physical comedy there was in this movie until watching it like the third time maybe. Like, and like that's exaggerated too. Like when you have like a clumsy somebody like falling on something scene, they fall in several things and then a bucket falls on their head. It's like and there's whole scenes that are just physical comedy. Like my two favorite scenes in the film, I didn't even clip anything for the podcast because there's really very little dialogue. It's just visual and craziness. So after the opening montage of them like around the fire, like we cut to like these kids are undercovers in the camp bunks making out with each other. I love that this movie like has nothing sacred about children. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Like the way like most movies would not like acknowledge that like 12 or 13-year-old kids are all making out with each other and they don't see it. They're under blankets, but it's still it's
the
happening.
idea.
Then the kids are like, oh, we got to get back to our bunks. And everybody's like running across the camp, like back to their bunks. And like the counselors are just like, you shouldn't be out of your bunks. Like,
I mean, the director was saying, kids, you're not supposed to be out. Like, obviously doesn't care.
And Serena, like, is this like, was this like a thing? Are kids like actually sneaking out of their bunks at camps? Like, I mean, the director and writer said that.
No, it is. It is a thing for sure, especially the older kids. I mean, we had like a program, like a LIT program, which were like teenagers, and they had a lot more freedom. But I think the oldest campers were like about 12, 13. And yeah, for sure. We had to do like.
Wait, the oldest campers or the youngest campers?
The oldest 12, campers were 12, 13. Yeah. Okay, and then they could graduate into, or maybe like 14 was the oldest. And then they could graduate into the teenage program, which kind of had their own stuff to do. They were kind of like helpers / they had a different program that they were doing. Mm-hmm. They helped a lot in like the kitchen and it was almost like a job. But yeah, for sure, we had to do like night rounds. So there were several counselors that had to do like night sweeps. I think it was like up until like 12. Like you had a shift every week, and you literally just walked around the camp and were like catching kids like sneaking out of their bunks, and like putting them back in and like all the things. Yeah, it was kind of fun. I mean, you couldn't really like blame them, but.
That's really funny.
Okay, so yeah, we kids are running back to their bunks, and then there's a couple of them. They're trying to wake up Coop, who's their counselor. So Coop is kind of established as the main character of the movie right away because he's the one you see waking up, and then you see his love interest Katie telling the girls who are putting on their makeup in the morning, "You look hot."
Yeah,
the kids from the other bunk are gonna freak or something like that. I don't know. And then also you hear the radio kid in a voiceover encouraging everyone to seize the day and find someone to kiss today. It's like it's because it's your last day of camp. So now how we're going to do the rest of the podcast is we're going to go over one of the plot lines at a time. Because like even though the movie is kind of interwoven between going back and forth with these different stories and in time order of the day, like really there's like several stories like that are kind of discrete plot lines. So we're going to tell basically all of one plot line, and then we'll tell all of another plot line, and we'll talk about how they intersect at the final talent show, etc.
So I guess the main plot line that perhaps like grounds the whole thing, the first love romance is between Coop and his interest in Katie, who's dating Andy the big jerk,
played by Paul Rudd.
Played by Paul Rudd. He is such a perfect jerk. And so the opening scene is Katie and Andy making out, and talk about absurd. It is like they're just like licking each other's faces. Basically, there's so much tongue.
It is only though like really one step removed from how I used to kiss my first boyfriend. Okay, like I'm not kidding. Like they made fun of us, like Trike and I. They said like we look like a couple of Pez dispensers. That's like So yeah.
So it's a
show-
realistic portrayal of teenagers.
Yeah, just one step over, I would say. Yeah. Like
Wow.
yeah. Like after this like ridiculous kiss, like Coop's been watching them kiss, and Katie comes over to Coop and she's like teasing him a lot. She's like got her hands on him, saying he looks good, and like saying like, you want to be my boyfriend or something, like totally exaggerated version of like a hot girl teasing the dorky guy. And then she says that she's gonna get Coop a woman, and she walks away, and as she's walking away, Coop says, "I want you inside me."
I know.
And it's just like, that's like kind of one of your first hints that this movie's like going to be like absurd and like have like weird shit going on all over the place. That was like the first thing I noticed. And then Katie and Andy have like a really kind of like messed up dynamic. Paul Rudd plays Andy, and he plays like the biggest douche I've ever seen in any movie ever, like the biggest jerk ever. They're making out in the cafeteria, and like Katie's asking him if they can go for a walk later and make out again. And Andy's like, "God damn it, Katie, you're suffocating me." And Katie's like just saying like, "But we're soulmates and I just want things to be special." And like Andy's like, "Fuck you." And then he calls her a dyke. And I'm like,
yeah.
Like but then right away he turns around and he's like, "I love you, baby." But then he leaves her. And he swings around this pole dramatically while giving her the finger. So it's like hot and cold within the same scene. It's like a masterpiece of like everything Paul Rudd does in this movie. I can't explain it well enough. His faces, his body language, his like his line delivery. Like, what do you guys think? I thought he was the best character.
You could tell that he probably loved playing this role, because it's just hilarious. He does it so well. You could tell like this is like he really thought everything out like perfectly. Like, okay, now he's gonna do this and now he's gonna do that. I wonder how much of it was improv. I'm sure a lot of it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, definitely the physical comedy, like he's just like delivering it all the time. And his faces, oh my God. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I wish I could properly explain them. You just like, it would be worth it to me to see this movie just for Paul Rudd in it, to be honest. I don't know.
I feel like a lot of those characters, that hot guy that the girl wants, they really don't have any good quality to them, and you wonder what the hell. But yeah, also being young, so which we get to.
But
later.
this is like this plus like, you know, this is like the jerk in the movie taken to like the nth degree.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yes. Because then he cheats on her. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no! Well, you can talk about it if you
want. Andy then cheats on Katie as well with Lindsay, and as a result is also allowing campers to drown and then ditching their swimming buddies.
Yeah, so like he's like at the boat thing. He's supposed to be like the swim counselor, maybe it looks like
a lifeguard are watching, just making sure they're being safe. Yeah,
and like this little kid is like, "Hey Andy, can I take out the speedboat?" And like this is even before Lindsay gets there. He's like, "Yeah, whatever." And the kid's like taking the speedboat out, and then like then Lindsay, played by Elizabeth Banks, comes by and they're making out, and like the kid comes back for the speedboat and he like tries to walk out onto the pier, but instead goes in the water, and then he's like drowning like right in front of Andy, and he's like, "I'm busy," because he's making out with Elizabeth Banks, and the kid drowns, and then like the swim buddy's like, "Where's my swim buddy? Andy, you let him drown." And then and that's go ahead.
And then it cuts to a van driving out of camp, and then slowing down, and that kid who was like, "Where's my swim buddy? You let him drown," getting pushed out of the car onto the side of the road.
And like
it's something so I found bad.
But something I found out like doing research was like that originally he was going to take them out in the woods and shoot them. Like that's
but that didn't test well. People were like, no that's going too far.
No, they didn't actually shoot it. It's not that it didn't test well. It was I think one of the writer's dads said that they couldn't do it. Yeah. Like one of the writer's dads was like, "Don't do that. That's too far." And I think they're right. Like I think throwing him out of the car is funny. And you're like, "Oh, the kid's still alive," even though the other kid drowned.
He's fine.
Like the other kid drowned though.
Terrible.
Yeah, and then this happens like later. This joke is repeated too, because then he's taking kids out water skiing with Elizabeth Banks' character Lindsay later, and like the kid's doing fine water skiing, and then they start making out, and then the water skiing kid drowns.
Yeah.
And then the other kid in the boat's like, when is it going to be my turn?
And then they throw him out too of the moving van, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I remember when I watched this like for the first time. I want to say I watched it with Karen Carlson.
Oh yeah.
The first time I watched this, and like we just laughed and laughed and laughed at that. Like that was our favorite scene when they were throwing the kids out of the van. I don't know why, but like we just thought that was so funny.
So wrong.
Because it's like so irreverent. Yeah, they don't treat kids with they don't treat kids with kid gloves in this movie. They're just whatever. And then my other favorite thing from the water skiing scene is like, I guess earlier in the movie, Lindsay had barbecue sauce all over her face at the barbecue, and she had wiped that off already. But then he's kissing her on the boat, like after that, and he goes, "You taste like a burger. I don't like you anymore." I don't know why I love that line. I just love that line so much.
A production note about the first scene where they're at the piers and the kids are swimming and Elizabeth Banks goes over swimming. It was raining and freezing that day, and they talk about in the production like all these little kids they have out in the freezing cold and they're all just shaking and and it was raining. I don't know how. I was thinking, like, how do they make it look so it doesn't, like, they're filming while it's raining, but as we're watching it, we don't notice.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know how that works, but I'm like, I love it.
So, like, while all this is going on with Andy, Katie and Coop are hanging out together, like, in various places, and eventually they end up together in a goat barn. Like, that's where he goes to think, apparently. And there's this one of those typical scenes where somebody's like, "I'm cold." Like, the girl's like, Katie's like, "I'm cold." And then he's like, "I'm freezing." And then she offers to give him her sweatshirt.
Yeah.
And then he offers her his flannel. And then he says, "It's my favorite shirt. You're going to have to give it back." And then she gives the flannel back like right away.
That was funny.
And then she's freezing and like he's warm. And like, I don't remember. Did he give her a sweatshirt back again? I can't even remember.
Yeah, he gave the sweatshirt back, I think. And then he has her flannel and then he's wearing her sweatshirt. And it's like, that was so silly. That was funny because that is another cliche of like, wrapping it around and now their arms are around each other and they go in for the kiss and which they do with a goat nearby.
Yeah, the goat's just they don't kiss the goat. The goat's just walking by.
Right.
It was so romantic. Yeah. And then after that, like he's really excited. Coop's really excited, but like Katie goes and talks with Andy again and then tells Coop it was a mistake. She has a boyfriend. And so then you get the grand speech like that's in every rom-com, but like their version of that grand speech, which like I would like to read in full because it's amazing. If it's okay.
Sure.
"Wait, Katie. When we first started hanging out together this morning, we were just friends. But things change, and I've fallen in love with you. And I just know that if you gave me a chance, I could make you feel so good. So I'm coming to you not as your buddy and not as your co-counselor, but for the first time as a man who loves a woman and who wants to hold her and provide for her and yes, have sex with her. But no, seriously, Katie, I love the way you laugh and I love the way your hair smells. And I love it that sometimes for no reason you're late for shul. And I don't care that you're bow-legged. And I don't care that you're bilingual. All that I know is that I would have said no to every single person on your list because I've always wanted you."
That's so fantastic. And each time they like cut from him back to her reaction and back to him, like the continuity isn't correct. And they did a lot of that on purpose too, which I absolutely love. Yes. And so he he's like starts on the right side of the screen, then he's in the center, and then he's on the left.
No way. I didn't even notice that. That's funny.
Yes. I was
just noticing the absurdity of the words. Like he starts talking about like you're bow-legged and you're bilingual.
and for no reason you're late for shul. That cracked me up too. I'm like, what the hell? It was fantastic.
Yeah. And so, like, after this, Coop undergoes a training montage that you see in a lot of movies with Gene the chef. Like, and Gene is, like, encountering him. He's, like, Coop's crying on a rock wall or something, and all of a sudden Gene is right behind him. Like, and we'll talk about Gene later. He's a really weird Vietnam vet character. And then they, like, they do this training montage, and it's like, shit, what does he say to him? Like, all right, well, he says something like, I'm going to teach you the new way or something. Yeah. Okay, do you want to talk about the training montage, Sophia? Because I think wasn't it one of your favorite scenes?
It was one of my favorites. And Gene is just so freaking weird. And then all of a sudden he's like training Coop to, like, I don't know, be cool or something. And they're in the dance studio, and to watch Christopher Maloney, who just looks like he's so tough looking, doing this like ridiculous dancing. And apparently that was all him. Like, really? All of that choreography, all of that stuff, that was him. He's like, we'll do it this way. And they're like, go for it, and improvised all that stuff. And then they're doing, like, I don't know, it's like Miyagi kind of like sitting down, and Gene has some kind of red ball in his hand, and Coop is trying to get it, and it's only to when he's like completely zen is he able to grab the
and they're running randomly.
They're like, you know, it's like a Rocky kind of thing, you know. They're jogging, and then they're just doing like these, you know, walks through the woods and like being one with nature. And
there's like a group therapy session with a bunch of women in robes with him too. That was the weirdest one.
Yes, smoking with coffee, all of that. That was.
And then the whole thing is done to the song like Higher and Higher, which was one of the original songs, and it's like something like, show me the fever into the fire, taking it higher and higher.
Yeah, perfect.
No need for fear, it's only desire. Yeah, I like that song. Yeah, and the song begins with like one of those like eagle or hawk sounds. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh man.
Oh, and then the way they end the scene too. Did you notice the ending, Sophia? Like,
yes. Gene and Coop like leap up in the air, and then it freezes. It's in slow-mo, and then it freezes. And I love that too. Perfect.
Yeah. It is such an 80s montage. It's like the ultimate. And like this happens a lot now in movies. Like I think they do this a lot, but I don't remember that happening a lot in 2001. I think like this movie wasn't very well reviewed at the time, but like it's been called like kind of a template for like modern comedy by some people, you know? Like that it kind of sort of pioneered some of the ways that we make fun of the movies now.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I love Coop's clothing transition. He's in these shiny shorts, and he's got a crop top.
Oh, like, yeah. Say where he's going though. Say like where.
So
where.
Now, okay.
Set up the scene for that. Yeah.
So well, as the montage is happening, Coop's clothes are changing, but then the final reveal of his like super Coop outfit is at the talent show, and it, you know, he comes through the door and it cuts right to his feet, and he's got those great 80s sneakers, and they're pitch white, and then his knee-high socks, white socks pulled up, and it pans up to these, you know, shiny green shorts, his crop top, and then the sweatband. And everyone's like, wow. And then, I mean, can I tell the Andy double take? He looks over. The best double take that Janeane Garofalo said in the commentary, the best double take in film history or whatever. Andy looks over, looks back, and then whips around and does this fantastic double take to Coop, and then Coop gives.
Oh wait! Before that,
go ahead.
Like,
Sure, go ahead.
Everyone in the whole camp. It's like one of those scenes where like there's rock music playing as he enters, and everyone in the whole camp is like looking at him like, "Oh, Coop, you're different now." And like Katie's like, "Whoa, my goodness!" Like,
yeah,
I love your sweatband and your crop top or whatever.
So what happens next is he goes up to her and is like,
yeah.
What does he say?
It's
or
like,
what happens then?
He says like, I'm leaving now or something like that. And then he gives her like this tiny box, like a gift box. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then she opens it.
Yeah. And out comes this huge flannel shirt.
Like out of this improbably small box. And then she's like, now I know that I love him. Like,
right.
And like, yeah, like, do they actually kiss again? I think they do, right? I don't actually remember.
I don't remember. Oh, but she runs out. So now they're outside the talent show hall or whatever. And she's like, I love you, Coop. I love you. And he's like, say it again. I love you. And so, they declare their love and they're together. And she leaves Andy. But then the next day.
So like the next day you see Coop, he's looking normal again. He's approaching Katie. And you're kind of expecting like your traditional, like, you know, happy ending or whatever, right? And this is what we get instead.
This is it, babe.
Yep.
So obviously, I think we should get together in the city next weekend. I'll call my parents, and you can talk to your dad. And
Listen, Coop. Last night was really great. You were incredibly romantic and heroic. No doubt about it. And that's great. But I've thought about it, and my thing is this. Andy's really hot. And don't get me wrong, you're cute too, but Andy is like cut from marble. He's gorgeous. He's like this beautiful face and this incredible body, and I genuinely don't care that he's kind of lame. You know, I don't even care that he cheats on me. And I like you more than I like Andy, Coop, but I'm 16. And maybe it'll be a different story like when I'm ready to get married, but right now, I am entirely about sex. I just want Andy.
Yeah.
I want to take him and grab him and just fuck his brains out, you know? So that's where my priorities are right now. Sex, specifically with Andy and not with you. But you're really nice. I mean, everybody thinks so. And I'm sorry if this isn't the direction that you saw things going between us. I still totally want to be friends. You better write me a letter, okay?
Sure.
Oh.
Perfect.
What do you guys think about that scene?
I think it's probably like one of the most like realistic,
Right.
realistic scenes in the movie. I was like, yep, that's probably exactly what would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also exaggerated too. Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. That's
But
just like
she probably would totally just pick him. She would never pick the nerdy guy. No one ever does that.
I
Not-
mean,
Not as a teenager.
I don't know. Like, I think in some ways to me, it like when I first watched it, it rubbed me a little bit the wrong way because like I would pick like the nerdy guy. And I think why it rubbed me the wrong way is because you always see these movies where like this nerdy guy wants the really hot girl and like you're supposed to feel sorry for him. But like what it isn't showing is like there's probably a couple other nerdy girls that he could date easily, but he's not. You know what I mean?
right.
It's like it's always like I'm such a nice guy, so I deserve to get like the prettiest girl kind of a thing.
Right.
And I don't think this movie's consciously trying to do that. Like I think Coop's supposed to be like, you know, it's complicated for me. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like, where's the nerd girl in this movie? Or like, why is Coop fixated on this girl in particular?
Right.
You know what I mean? Is it
Mhm.
making fun of just Katie or is it also making fun of him? I don't know.
Well, here's a couple interesting things. I mean, as it ends, like everybody drives away and it pans away and Beth, you know, walks over to Coop, puts his arm around him and they walk off. And in the commentary, they're like, yep, life goes on. That's what we wanted to show. That, you know, and I like that ending to all of it. It's like, okay, life goes on. There was a subplot between Coop and Susie that got cut. But at one point they dated and it seemed like they were like had like, you know, rooting for each other and supporting each other and stuff like that. So like that could have been a fun way to go, but they wound up cutting all of that. So like there's your other like love interest that could have lasted.
Like, how do you end up feeling about Katie after this, like, or Coop as characters? Or is it like so removed, like the comedy that you can't feel much for them?
I think that's it. Like it's so removed that I'm like, okay, of course it ended that way. And then, is that Andy's dad driving the car?
Probably. Maybe unless he has like a chauffeur. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, get in.
Yeah.
Like he's still treating her like shit. And she's like, oh, well, this is what I wanted.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so true, though. Like, how many times have you seen that played out with teenagers, with adults? Like,
yeah. I mean, like, definitely, I feel like there's this part that, like, always wants that. I mean, like, yeah, the happily ever after, but they are just kids. And, like, what are they gonna? Is that realistic? I don't know. Not necessarily.
I was actually surprised because doesn't she say she's like, I'm 16?
Yeah, they're all supposed to be about 16.
I was actually surprised that she was that young. Like I mean, obviously she was older. Like the the actress is older. Yeah. But then I was like, that also seems young for like a counselor. Like I don't know how all camps work. But
maybe it's the time period. I don't know.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, that's true. At least when I was there, which was like I guess the early 2000s, there was definitely because there were some like 18-year-olds, and then I remember there was like a 17-year-old that like worked in the office from like town, and there ended up being this huge drama about like them getting together, and like police were called and that person got deported, and it was like a big drama. Yeah.
The 18-year-old and the 17-year-old?
Yeah, I totally remember this. It was
geez.
like, yeah, it was like just like some of the drama, but then that's why I was like, oh, well, maybe that's why in years to come, like they had to be a little bit older because there was such a. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
No, that's perfectly good information. Yeah, I think maybe part of it could do with age of consent laws and stuff like that. They used to be lower ages. Yeah, exactly,
for sure.
Yeah. So then, so that's our main plot line, but there's like a ton of other plot lines in this movie. The next one we'll go on to is the secondary story, I would say. Like, I think that there's an A story, a B story, and then like maybe a bunch of C stories. Does that sound about right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like the B story definitely seems to be between Beth, the camp director, played by Janeane Garofalo, and Henry, the astrophysicist, played by David Hyde Pierce. And like they have this like dorky like thing where like the first time you see them interacting is like Janeane Garofalo looks over to him and he's like on his porch, I guess, of a house that's right next to the camp or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that like part never made sense to me. Like I was like, so wait a minute, like where are they? Why would he have a house? Like,
why would he want to go there to like,
to unwind? But she's got her coffee mug. She's got her coffee mug, and she kind of cheers her coffee mug at him across the lawn or whatever. And they're so awkward. And she goes up to him and she tries to get him to come to the camp and teach science to the kids. And at first he's like, no, I'm not doing that. Like he actually yells at her.
Yeah.
But then he shows up to the camp in a subsequent scene, and I love this line. He comes to the camp and starts talking to a counselor. Says, "Could you tell me where I could find the sci-fi nerdy, the indoor kids?" And one of the counselors like just points him right over this table. Right. And I guess all those kids had like in the credits, they all had names that were like Cure Girl, so girl who likes the cure or something. Mork kid, like Mork and Mindy. Who were the other ones? Cape Boy or something? Like
there's a Cape Boy. There was a medieval guy or something.
One of them's a dungeon master for D&D.
The other one was a mall rat.
Yeah, just all the misfit kids. It's amazing. Like later, you could see them doing Stranger Things. You know what I mean? Like
right.
You got the Stranger Things crew, and I've left out a lot of stuff. Do you guys want to put in stuff before the makeover, or do you want to just like?
I just think it's hilarious that she without any vetting, any background check, this man can just walk onto the campus and take a bunch of kids to the woods. Like
it's the 70s and the 80s.
I thought that too, but then I did think of the time frame. I was like, I thought about that too. I was like, wait a minute. But then you're right. Yeah, totally the time frame. Like that was totally like probably acceptable. They're like, sure, strange man. Which is probably why those laws were then invented. Because they're like, you can't do that anymore because bad stuff happens.
But not with Henry. Henry's a good guy.
Henry's a very good guy. He's fantastic. He's great. He's great. There's actually a lot of sweet moments. I really like him and the kids. And even in the commentary, Janeane Garofalo's like, oh, I love that part where they're just all laying on the ground and looking at the stars. And I love that little misfit group. I think they were my favorites.
So, like, Beth has a scene where she goes to Katie and she's like, you're a hot girl, right? And she's like, what would you do to look pretty? And, like, Katie's saying, I'd probably wear, like, a hot dress. Or, no. And Beth is like, well, I might put on a clean pair of pants. And Katie's like, pants? And Katie's like, you should wear a hot dress. And then she's like, and I'd put mousse in my hair. And then Janeane Garofalo's character is like, mocking, like putting her hands up like horns, like she's like an animal moose. She's like, no, like a moose, I'll moose you up. And like Beth gets this ridiculous makeover, Sophia's favorite thing, makeovers. And she gets this crazy 80s hairstyle. Like I can't even describe it. Like what? Her hair is like side parted, so like a huge amount of it is like over her face.
Wasn't that called like a bitch flip? I remember that being called a bitch flip.
Oh, I don't know.
I totally remember that.
I don't remember being called exaggerated flip. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. And then you kind of hung your head to the side. Did you do that part too? Where you kind of, and like all of it just like hung over? I remember that.
Yeah, I did not engage in any of these hairstyles. Once I tried to have the big bangs and it looked terrible on me. And once I tried to crimp my hair and that also looked terrible on me.
Crimped. I had it crimped too.
Oh, I have a school picture where it's crimped. It was sad. Anyway.
Yes.
Anyway, she gets this ridiculous haircut and like Henry sees her and he's like, "Oh, I like your new hair. Or your new style. It's very chic or something." And so they're trying to have this conversation, and then Beth's pretending to be interested in astrophysics, and he's like, "Who's your favorite astrophysicist?" And like, it's obvious she can't remember any she doesn't know any at all. Yeah. So she's like, makes an excuse to leave, and that leads to both of them like separately going to being led to the library to study astrophysics and camp directing.
I love
and when they show the library, the section for astrophysics and section for camp directing are right next to each other.
Right.
And they're like on opposite sides of the bookshelf.
Writer director said that was their shout out to like Airplane or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was fantastic. I loved that.
So Henry's meanwhile, like there's another subplot going on in this, like besides the romance, Henry's working with the nerdy kids and he discovers that a piece of Skylab is hurtling towards the camp. And I guess like Skylab did like fall back to Earth, but it didn't ever injure anybody. Like it fell into like the ocean and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
But that was like a kind of a topical thing. So the first time Beth and Henry actually like hook up or start kissing is during the Capture the Flag game. And the reason why is because Henry's telling her his feelings about only being an assistant professor.
Yep.
Yeah. He's very emotional about it. He starts crying with the kids about it and they all hug each other.
They all hug him. I think that's really sweet.
Yeah. So they bond over like Henry being sad with the kids about not being a real professor or whatever, or he's lesser than. And then she says, "Well, you're a great teacher. I saw you with the kids or whatever." And he's like, "Tell that to my dean." And so this gag where like Janeane Garofalo is going to write the dean and give him a recommendation, like a camp director's recommendation would mean anything.
Right.
And like she takes down the address and like after that, like he's like, "Oh, you care about me so much," or something. And they kiss. And there's a Capture the Flag game going on simultaneously during that. And yeah, after they kiss, they have other people kind of looking at each other romantically. And there's a running gag where Abby kisses everyone and she kisses someone. It's like a whole thing. It's so hard to talk about this movie in order. Oh my God.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do love the part where they impress each other. Like she starts dropping all these, astrophysicist terminology and names. And he's like, wow. And then they're walking and holding hands. And he talks about like all the stuff it takes to be a camp, director, like administration and parents and payroll. And she's like, wow. I thought that was cute. I really liked that part.
The fruits of their knowledge from the library. Yeah.
Yep.
Which they also managed to read up on in much less than one day.
Yes. When were they doing that study? I have no idea.
Oh my God. So Beth and Henry have gotten together and Skylab is imminently coming towards the camp, apparently. And like instead of like evacuating the camp, like of course they need to build an elaborate tracking device and then another device to divert Skylab from the camp. And not only is it going to hit the camp, apparently it's going to hit the auditorium where the talent show is happening.
Yep. I love it.
It's like something like I wish I had the dialogue from this section too. Like Janeane Garofalo has the perfect reactions to when he said Skylab is coming towards the camp, and she's like, "Jesus," or something like that. It's so funny. And they end up successfully diverting Skylab, and it might be them, and it might be a kid who's in the talent show that we'll talk about later. But they make this ridiculous device, like you see it, like with like a grape nuts box. Like a colander. I think there were some donuts in there.
Donuts. Yep.
What else? Did anyone else remember any of the other parts? It's ridiculous looking.
I love the grape nuts box. There might have been a Fruit Loops something or other too. I don't know. All these weird things that it's fantastic.
And the kids are just like surrounding it and operating it. And then like they also need to generate random numbers between 1 and 20 for some reason. And like the D&D kid saves the day with his D&D dice.
Yes, I love that part. Fantastic. Yes. So the next day, after, Skylab has been diverted and everybody's saved, Henry wins a science prize.
The Hopkins prize.
The Hopkins prize. And I love that they do this in the film where, like, they're holding something and then they hand it off camera and somebody takes it. And then, like, where the hell did they put that thing? That gag.
What are you talking about?
So they did it twice when Gene has got the can of, like, vegetables and he hands it off. And then this scene, and Henry's got the big prize, the big trophy, and he hands that off too off camera, and somehow it disappears, and he set it down.
I didn't even notice that. Yeah, there's so many layers. There's so many layers to the humor. Yeah,
I love those gags. So NASA hires him. Beth is pregnant, and he and Beth will live happily ever after she can be with Henry and then come back and still return to camp every summer. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, they've decided this all in a day. Yeah.
In a day. and she's pregnant. That's funny.
Oh my God.
I like their little wrap up there. That was great.
And this is our one romance, I think, that's like truly you can feel happy about, even though you still feel this emotional distance because of the absurd humor, but you still feel like there's an appropriate couple that got together.
Yeah.
You're not the only couple that gets together, as we'll find out later, but there's an appropriate one. Okay, the next part, oh man, I think Victor, Neil, and Abby is my favorite storyline.
I love them too. I really get a kick out of this storyline.
So there's this like plot line. Victor's this like guy with this kind of like a Drew fro, but he's like kind of like muscular, and he like thinks all the chicks want him, and he's like that guy. Okay, that guy shows up in a lot of horror movies. Like you will recognize that stereotype. And he wants to sleep with a camp slut. There's no other way to describe her, Abby. And I love Abby. I can't help it. I love her. She's always kissing like everybody throughout the movie. But the problem is Victor is being sent to take the campers on a rafting trip with his fellow counselor and friend Neil. So they have to go on an all-night rafting trip. He's going to lose his chance to like get together with Abby, and that's kind of the setup.
So they're at the van. They're getting ready to leave for this trip, and Abby comes up and asks for gum. There's a lot of gum here, all right while they're kissing, and it's like, oh my gosh. So they're both chewing on gum, and they make out, and Victor says he'll come back. He's supposed to spend the night and come back in the morning, but she's like, but I want you, and so he's like, I'll come back.
Yeah, I love the way the gum is used. Like whenever like somebody hands Abby gum, it's like code for we're gonna make out.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like that's hilarious. Yeah.
I'll also jump in with a behind the scenes tidbit that apparently the camp owners told the crew their two rules were no gum and no bottles, like glass. And immediately those two things were broken. There was gum and glass bottles everywhere, which is terrible. Shame. So all that gum. So now we're in the van, and Victor confesses he's a virgin.
Yeah, and he's been the guy who's talking about all the chicks he's banged all the time. So it's like shocking. And what isn't like Neil like, you're a loser.
Yeah.
I love Neil's hair. I love his look as well. It's so perfect.
The kind of mullet kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and the big glasses.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they get to where they're going to do this rafting trip, and Victor ditches Neil and the kids to try to get back to camp. And I love his singing in the car too. He's so sincere. I forgot what song it was, but
yeah. Wait, let's try it. I think I can almost. It's on the tip of my tongue. Shit. It's like some 70s.
When I rise.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that one.
Yeah.
I'm so in love with you, honey. Everything. Something in the chain of love. Yeah.
And then Abby's listening to it as well, like her in her room, but then some other guy comes in.
Yeah, and there's gum exchanged again when the other guy comes in. And they kiss. Yes. Yeah. But meanwhile, Victor's so into his singing that he just crashes his van off the road into a tree.
Yes. It's so random. You're like, okay.
And like Neil's on the raft, right? And like the kids are like, we need Victor. Like Victor's the only one who knows how to do these rapids or whatever. And Neil's like, well, I'll get Victor, dead or alive or something. The kids are like, we want him alive. Like Neil like jumps out of the fucking raft, leaving all the kids alone, swims over. And then, Sophia, do you want to describe this? You said this was one of your favorites too, didn't you? Or was it Serena?
Well, a little bit later. Well, all of a sudden, there's a campsite and a motorcycle, and he gets on. He jumps on this motorcycle and drives away. But the part that I love is like, I guess Victor can hear the motorcycle coming, and he starts to run away, and then they cut to Neil on the motorcycle chasing him, and then back to Victor, and then they do this like pan, like they've done a couple cuts where it makes it look like they're far away, but then they do a pan over, and like the motorcycle's right behind Victor.
On a motorcycle, but supposedly Victor's running so fast that like he's outrunning the motorcycle.
He's outrunning the motorcycle. And then there's a bale of hay in the middle of the street, and Victor runs up to it, and he's like, oh my God. Like he's got to and then they do this side shot where he leaps over and he escapes.
In slow motion.
In slow motion.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of room to go around, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
and the close up of Neil's face when he's like driving the motorcycle too, like how intense he looks. You know what I mean?
Like I'm gonna get you. And then Neil drives up to the hay bale, and he's like stuck. Like he can't. That's it. He's trapped. I love that. That reminds me of airplane kind of humor.
And Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles.
Specifically, there's that scene in Blazing Saddles where they put up the toll booth in the middle of the desert, and instead of just going around it, the guy's like, we gotta go back to camp and get a shitload of dimes.
Like, it's so stupid, but it's so funny. I love that part.
And the way it's filmed is so spot on, like that kind of chase scene from that era. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And then meanwhile, Abby's back at camp making out with everyone. And Victor's like, wait for me, Abby Bernstein, or something. So then we get back to camp. Janeane Garofalo's like, I don't know how she would know this, by the way. But she's like, the kids are stuck. Like, they're almost about to go over the rapids. And you see this shot, like you see in an Indiana Jones movie where something terrible is about to happen. And the kids are on the raft right over the edge of this waterfall. And then they repeatedly cut back to the kids at the exact same spot about to fall over the waterfall as time has gone by. Just like an Indiana Jones movie, like the exaggerated version of that, where he has to grab his hat and his hand's almost going to get crushed or something.
Yeah. They're not moving at all.
Yeah.
Like the water's rushing past them, and they're not at all moving. Oh God, so funny.
And then the other funny thing is when Victor gets back, he sees Abby, and she's like now making out with a camper. Like an actual like 13-year-old kid. I was just like, whoa.
So bad.
And then my favorite scene. Okay, my favorite scene is this is like before that happened, before we see Victor. Neil and Beth, the camp director, they're like trying to find out where Victor is, and apparently he's called from like inside the camp. So then they have to find like where the phone is. They go into, and it's in the infirmary. Apparently, they go into the infirmary and they're like, "Where's the phone?" And they just start knocking shit off of tables and like counters and every surface. It's to me, it's the funniest scene in the whole movie, just because it's like by the end of it, like Neil's like knocking over, like they've actually gone through the whole building and knocked everything off surfaces. So he takes a jar and he throws it against the wall, bumps into a lamp, and he like knocks that over. It's amazing. It's bonkers. Sorry, I can't even tell you how good that scene is.
That scene is fantastic. Janeane Garofalo said it was her favorite to film. They had such
I
a
would
good
have
time.
loved to have filmed that scene. Wouldn't it be amazing to just run through a set and knock shit off of things?
Yep, screaming and yelling. So great.
That sounds like they should be like therapy rooms where you can do that. I'm not kidding.
But they finally get back to the campers. They rescue you don't even see it. You don't even actually see the rescue.
Yeah, that's the best part. Yeah, like Victor is going to go to rescue them, but then they cut to Neil, and you just have to see him act, Joel Trulio or whatever, just acting that whole thing out.
Yeah,
like with hand gestures, like you're doing it. You're saving them.
Yeah. And then they're all walking up the side of the bank, and this is my favorite. I freaking love this part where Victor goes to Neil, next time you drive the van. And then they start laughing, and they just keep that ridiculous laughing as they get closer to the camera and then off camera.
Yeah, it's like the end of like a sitcom or something.
A sitcom. So perfect. I loved it. Next time you drive the van.
Yeah, like that has anything to do with anything too. Like it's hilarious. Oh my God. And can I just say how much I love Abby? Like she's kissing people all the time in this movie, just like anybody. Like and like at the talent show, like at some point during the talent show, this like wind blows up and she's sitting next to Lindsay and then she starts kissing Lindsay.
Yeah, they start making out. That's pretty.
Oh, I love Abby.
Silly.
I love her. She's just so pure. She's purely what she is. Anyway.
Of course.
What of course?
Like, of course, that's the character you would like the most. Of course.
I didn't say the most, but
of course, that's the one like you relate to. You're like, oh, the horny girl who makes out with everybody.
You know. Okay, so that brings us to the theater people. Susie, who's Amy Poehler, and Ben, who is Bradley Cooper, are the theater obsessives. And I have a clip about, I think, one of their first scenes. So I'll play that really quick and then we can discuss them.
Hey, you guys. Everybody focus up, okay? All eyes here. I would like to announce that Ben and I are planning to produce a musical number from Godspell for the talent show tonight. I'm sorry, Ben is producing. I'm directing/choreographing.
And I'm only speaking from personal experience, but if you can't carry a tune, don't come into the audition environment and waste our time. We're serious, okay?
Okay, and bring a lot of movement clothes, aka jazz shoes, dance belts, lycras, et al. And seriously, FYI, you guys, this is not an excuse to get out of your regular activities. This is an excuse to do some good musical theater. So be prepared, be enthusiastic, and leave your bullshit attitude and baggage at the door, because we don't need it. Hey, you guys!
Fantastic. Amy Poehler. Yes. Oh,
yeah, this is them in the cafeteria trying to recruit people.
They're perfect.
Yeah, as a theater person, have you met
these
people?
I loved it. I've met these people. I've seen these people where they're like, yeah, don't come if you're not serious. You know, this is life and death. And, you know, yeah.
And like, Serena, you said you had something to say about maybe talent shows, like,
well, because it is a huge part of like the camp experience is like the end of camp talent show. And it is really one of those things where it's like the kids and the counselors, I mean, you're working the entire week on these displays and it's like really serious. Like everyone, well, not the counselors as much, but like the kids take it really seriously. Like like we still joke about it. Like some of my counselor friends, you know, we did at the time Rent was really popular. I remember doing, like I still have like nightmares. Like I still have like these Rent nightmares of like
oh my god, like some 9-year-old trying to sing "Take Me Out Tonight" or something.
Well, it was us. I mean, it wasn't the kids themselves were more into like their dance routines. Like that was really more of like what they were interested in doing. But the counselors, like we had to come up with our own things to do. And I remember we did this whole Rent thing, and then we did we would always do a prayer like montage. and that was definitely like from me as like a throwback to like some of our like house parties and singing and dancing around and like miming to that. I don't know. Yeah. It's definitely like a huge deal in like the microcosm of camp. So like when they're about how serious everything is, you know.
How about the theater counselors? Were there specific theater counselors where you were? Or?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And actually one of my good friends went on to be a theater teacher, and another counselor actually went, and I don't know if you remember, I went to Vanuatu, which is a tiny like island nation in the Pacific. One of the art counselors actually started a theater group there in Vanuatu, like using his like camp experiences. And I got to visit him there and see like the work that he's doing. And he was at the time, like, I think I was his boss when we were young, and he was like, I learned so much from you. And like, I didn't give a shit, you know, like at the time. But he was like, oh my God, there's so much that like I learned from camp and learned from you. And like, without those experiences, I couldn't have gone on to like do this, you know? So it's really strange how that stuff comes through, you know?
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, we definitely had some big theater people. I think my friend went into theater therapy, which I never realized was like a thing. Like
sure.
like kind of like art therapy, but using like dramatics, and that's his like career now.
That's
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
Random. So these theater counselors are definitely not into theater therapy. They're just being like super hard on these kids. Like
right.
So they're watching them dance, and Amy Poehler's like, I feel like I'm watching regional theater, you guys. And she's like, your craft is a muscle. And like she's yeah, Sophia.
Oh, jeez. And she's just saying they're all crap, but then at the end, the girl has got this amazing voice. She's can
when
totally
they do Day by
sing.
Day from
when
Godspell.
They do Day by Day of Godspell.
Yeah. Do you know that musical or like anything about it or like?
Gosh, I forgot.
Okay,
don't worry. I remember that one song, but I don't remember the rest of Godspell. No.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I wonder if that was like the cliched thing in the 70s and 80s, the way Rent was when Serena was a camper or a counselor, rather. You know, I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Day by day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does have a great voice. Yeah, she told they've got great costumes. They've got like a ridiculous set that they all put together in one day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They've got dance moves, and she's like, oh my God, they suck. She's nuts.
And then meanwhile, the other talents, there's like a guy who can balance brooms.
I got a true behind the scenes fact about that one. That's the camp owner's kid.
No way.
And yeah, he was wearing the actual camp t-shirt.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
There's another kid who lights his farts.
Yes.
Which may or may not be the kid who makes out with Abby. I don't know.
It is. It's the same kid, yeah. And it's the kid that does all the announcements too. Like dinner or like whatever he says.
Yeah. And then like there's this weird like comedian who like played also by Michael Showalter. I think he's supposed to be kind of like this stereotypical like kind of comedian that would entertain like we were talking about in Dirty Dancing at the Borscht Belt Resort.
Yeah.
With the really corny humor. And like they have everybody laughing at his terrible jokes like they're the funniest things they've ever heard in their lives, which is funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that bit was great.
Yeah. Anyway, the talent show goes off without a hitch, despite Susie's worries. Ben seems like he's less worried. He seems like he's the good cop of the theater counselors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Any more about the theater counselors?
No.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Ben is in another subplot and another romance in the movie with McKinley. So McKinley's just kind of another another counselor played by Michael Ian Black, who is one of the state people. And we find out about this romance because like McKinley's with a couple of the other male counselors behind a tree, and they're watching girls like taking off their shorts and shirts to like go swimming in their bikinis. Like in a normal movie like this, you would see them all topless. But I think the gag is kind of that they don't get topless, and instead they're just like ogling.
Yeah, they're not even swimming. Yeah. They're just standing in the water, tossing a beach ball back.
Well, that's part of the gag too.
That's part of the gag.
Like, yeah. Because like in movies like that, you always see girls doing things that they don't normally do, like frolicking in a dressing room or something, right? Like we don't go to the dressing room and just like throw our hair back and show boobs to each other. It's like kind of. Anyway, they're just like all ogling the girls, like getting like out in their bikinis, and McKinley's like, "Oh, I'll see you guys later." And so then the two guys are like saying, "Oh, McKinley's never gotten laid. He's never slept with a girl. Like he needs." I think they call him a gay slur, like a homophobic slur, and then that cuts to like McKinley going into a shed, and there's Ben, the theater counselor, in the shed, waiting for him. And they start to just like it's like the most romantic scene in the entire movie.
It is, right?
They're just very tender. Yeah, they're just very tenderly touching each other's face, taking off each other's shirts, and like kissing each other. And then they don't shy away at all. Like they're definitely showing like implying that they're having anal sex, and it's like. Yeah. But it's like really kind of like romantic and then kind of hot, and you're like, oh, good for you guys. Good for you.
I know the way they play it, man. Those two actors did not like go like it's probably the least overdone satirical thing. I was like, I really from Bradley Cooper. I was like, yeah. good. Like, I was just the way he like way Ben touches McKinley's face. It was so tender and beautiful. I'm like, oh my, this is.
And in 2001, that really meant a lot too, like in kind of a mainstream comedy. Well, it was an indie comedy, but still, like it wasn't specifically an LGBT movie, right? It was just like meant for just general audiences, and to have that kind of gay love scene is actually a lot. I like the way also it intercuts like still with the guys like being losers watching the girls in their bikinis talking shit about McKinley, and then it cuts back to the love scene. Like he's actually having sex. They're the ones just like sitting there being losers.
Yeah. Trying to hide behind a tree as if they really could be
like,
hidden. Yeah.
Hee girls in bikinis, hee. Anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then so later, they see those two same guys see McKinley like go off into the woods with Susie, and so they assume that they're going to have sex, but instead they stumble upon like Susie's playing like a pan flute or something, and then they see that like McKinley and Ben are like getting married with like flower garlands in their hair, and like Janeane Garofalo is officiating, and I think Michael Showalter's there too.
Yes, he is.
So funny.
And the guitar guy, there's a guy who plays the guitar, he's there too. Yeah. And it's like, but it's this beautiful looking wedding ceremony, but it's also hilarious because it's like such a cliche. It's such a cliche of that type of hippie wedding.
Yeah.
Later, you expect that those two guys come with like a giant box, like to the cafeteria, and they're like, Ben, McKinley, this is for you. And you like expect it's going to be like them being negative because they've been homophobic.
And they're really horrified too. I don't know if you remember, like I remember seeing like their faces, like they're like, oh no, everyone's going to find out, it's going to be terrible. And then,
And then they roll up the box to Ben and McKinley, and they're like, it's a chaise lounge, like it's for, congratulations. And then they're like, oh, it'll match that like blanket that somebody gave us or something. And, and everyone's happy for them. And it was sweet. I thought it was sweet. So it's like that's subverting the homophobia that you see in so many like late 70s or early 80s movies, really. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's definitely the happiest couple outcome, really.
For sure.
Well, so's Beth and
sure.
Henry.
But like you said, because their love scene is like the least satirical seeming scene, like I actually sort of feel more for them in a way.
Yeah.
Then we come to the next plot point, and that is Gene. He is the chef or the kitchen. What would you call that at camp? Like
head kitchen.
Well, I was asking Serena. Like, is there a specific name?
Yeah, like just like the cook. Like I do remember we had like a head cook or chef, and she was actually a lunch lady at like the Delavan district.
Okay,
and this was like her summer job.
This head cook, Gene, was a Vietnam veteran, and the first thing you see about him is he's always been really tough on his assistant chef or assistant cook or whatever, and like that's normal. But then there's this running gag where like every time he like leaves a conversation, he drops in some really inappropriate line. Like he tells his, assistant cook where to find something. And he's like, it's on the shelf next to my dick cream or something. Like, I don't even know what dick cream is, for one thing. Like, is it implying that it is a cream you put on your dick, or is it implying that it's cream that comes out of your dick? I don't know. Could go either way with this guy. It really could. And then the assistant cook's like, you said dick cream? And he's like, no, I didn't say that. I don't even remember what he said instead. But the gag is he keeps saying inappropriate things and then claiming he didn't say them. Another one he says is, I'm going to go fondle my sweaters. And then he covers that one up with, I'm going to go fondue some cheddar. But like, it's just like he keeps saying these really crazy things. And meanwhile, being a jerk to the assistant cook too. Okay. And then it gets weirder.
Yeah, it so gets weirder.
Because he's then talking to a can of mixed vegetables, and the can of mixed vegetables talks back to him. And like, actually, when you get to a Wet Hot American Summer First Day of Camp, the series, they give an explanation for the mixed vegetables. Okay. But just with the movie as a standalone, you think, okay, this man has lost his mind. A can of vegetables is talking to him.
Again, like, why was this guy let near children? Like, didn't they do a background check?
They checked and they saw that he was a veteran.
I guess. Okay.
I mean,
he talks to cans of soup and.
Yep. I mean, that's not going to hurt anyone, that part, honestly. But yeah. So anyway, the mixed vegetable can like also hears him saying something inappropriate, and then he tries to cover that up. And then the mixed vegetable can tells him, just be honest about who you are and like don't hide your like true self from people. So but before the last scene, like his big character arc thing, he leads, as we mentioned, he leads Coop's training montage, and he's doing the interpretive dance and whatever. And then finally, there's this big scene where the cook, where he makes an announcement in front of the whole camp who's in the cafeteria. And he gives this, like, you know how they have those rousing speeches in movies where somebody's like, I'm finally being my true self and telling you who I am. And it's like, it's got that inspirational music. And he's like, I like to fondle my sweaters, and I have dick cream, and like I like to rub mud on my ass. And then he's like, and now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna hump a fridge. And and they bring the fridge out into the room, and then he starts humping it. And then they move him out of there like by carrying the fridge out. It's the weirdest thing. That is like the weirdest scene in one of the weirdest movies.
Yeah. So weird. And then everybody claps.
Yeah, everybody claps.
Yeah.
Yourself. And Paul Rudd's reactions during this scene are hilarious. He's like nodding like, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Eating an apple. Okay. Fun production behind the scenes about that as well. Apparently, when Gene gives this speech, there was really I think there's a couple kids behind him, but then there's nobody else. They filmed it just on him, and all those cuts to other people's reactions and stuff like that were like filmed later on, and those are like brought in and editing and stuff like that. It wasn't all that. So that look that Paul Rudd gives, they might have been like, all right, Paul, stand here. We need you to make some, nod and smile, and like, okay. And then shot it and off they went. So, yeah, so I appreciate those scenes for that kind of thing, but so bizarre. It was so weird.
Yeah, it was a little like uncomfortable. There's such an uncomfortableness about this, and maybe because you are thinking like, okay, this is a camp for kids, and this is like wildly inappropriate.
Yeah,
like this is the same camp where they're ditching kids on the side of the road after their swim buddy was drowned.
I know, and I think that's where it like comes in, where you're just like, it's kind of like cringy, like, and that's. I get just the comparisons of like nowadays to like what the 80s were actually like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then bring in this like exaggerated version. It's so jarring.
Yeah. And it also plays with the cliche of the Vietnam vet character that you'd see in a lot of movies. Yeah. Which, oh my God, there's so many.
I'm sure Sophia watching this like as through the eyes of like a parent, and you're like thinking,
right,
like how would I send my kid to this camp?
As a preschool TA at a Catholic school, yes, all of the above. I'm like, my skin crawled again. I'm just like, I'm so protective of the children.
Yeah,
only one of Gene's activities would really potentially harm people, I think, though. Like, I mean, the humping the fridge, it's not going to make a difference. Fondling his sweaters, that's in his own cabin, and they're just sweaters. Rubbing mud on his ass as long as he washes his hand afterwards. I'm only really worried about the dick cream because I'm
also worried about his behavior.
I don't think you should keep that in the kitchen.
Toward the other kid, his like assistant, and he's always got that big butcher knife. I'm like, what are you threatening people for? I can't take
I was just talking on the level of the sexual stuff. Like, I was like, I'm sorry, it was kind of a joke, but if you think about it also, like, he's not actually doing things that are harmful to the kids. He's just out of bounds oversharing it. And speaking of oversharing, segue.
Perfect.
We come to Molly Shannon's character, who is the arts and crafts counselor, Gail. And she's a really, as far as I can tell, she's a pretty crappy counselor.
If I may, in the commentary, the guys were like, yeah, it seemed that every arts and craft counselor was this 35-year-old woman who was a little frazzled and like her marriage was falling apart and like oversharing with the kids. Like, apparently they experienced that at camp. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's terrible. So
wow.
Yes.
That's awesome.
It was a very specific character that they were familiar with. Oh my.
Yeah, so we get introduced to Gail. She comes in and she's like, we're going to use crayons to make some banners for the talent show. And like, there's one crayon left. And the little girl says, why don't we just use their markers? There's like millions of them. And she's like, I don't need this feedback or something to the little girl. And kind of snaps at her. And then she starts like crying. And then like there's bits of this scene that keep getting like cut back to over the whole thing. But this little boy in particular starts like counseling her about things and being like, Gail, men are schmucks. And like, you've got to stand up for yourself, Gail, and stuff like this. This little kid like saying all this shit. And then the kids as a whole, like the thing that they're talking about, she's talking about her ex-husband, Ron, who like left her and treated her badly and stuff like that. And then the kids start counseling her about how she's going to like reject Ron if he tries to get her back. Yeah, and then one of the boys gives her a back massage.
Yep, the same little counselor
The same
boy.
one, yeah.
Who, like sounds like an adult, but is
Yeah.
And I love that they do like a role play. They like do the phone call as if Ron were calling, and what would she say? And she kind of tenses up, and another kid's like, "Stay strong, Gail," and that was just
And then she's like, no, Ron, I won't come back to you in the role play. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or something like that. And then it really happens. They're at the talent show and like Ron shows up and tries to get Gail back. And then the kids are all looking at her like, come on, Gail, stay strong. Like you're saying. And she rejects him and she says, no, Ron, I'm done with you or something. And everybody claps and And then we get the most inappropriate relationship in the movie.
So bad.
Like Gail is like they're all leaving camp and Gail's talking to like Beth and like she's like is she holding hands or she just has her arm around the little kid or something?
I think she has her arm around
him.
Yeah, the little boy who was counseling her. She's like, we're getting married or something.
Yeah.
We're getting married. You're all invited.
Director's like, oh, good luck. Yeah. Like it's no big deal. Like it's totally normal.
Yeah. That's probably, like in reality, that would probably be the most, other than letting kids drown would be the most inappropriate too, but this is tied to the most inappropriate things that happened.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, God. Okay, and a final little character thing. There's the radio kid, Artie the Beekeeper Solomon. So he does like a kind of announcements and narration throughout the film. But the funniest part of this is there's this kid and he's obsessed with the radio. He never leaves. He hasn't taken a shower or whatever. He's always on the radio doing this like little funny radio personality. And then you see there's a scene where it shows you that all the radio equipment's unplugged. So all the times when they've shown him talking and it's as if it's to the whole camp, nobody's hearing him.
Yeah,
it's implied that he's just been holed up in this radio room the whole camp, not showering, talking to nobody. I felt bad for him.
Yep. But I love that it's like, gotta take a shower. It's been all summer. I don't want to get in trouble with your parents. Take a shower. And then he cuts later and he's like, did you do it? He's like, yeah, I took a shower. He clearly hasn't. And I love that filming at the end too, where they like, show, I don't know, Ben and McKinley nod to one other counselor, and then he nods to another, and then they all run in and they carry Radio Kid to the shower and like force him to take a shower.
Yeah, with his clothes on. Yeah,
with his clothes on.
And that's another one of those times where it says like they cuts and it's like 1 minute later.
Yeah.
So the whole shower took like a minute. Anyway, I love that little bit. So like, let's see, we're going to cover now any scenes that we missed or little tidbits that we missed. There's a scene that leads to the Netflix series where they promise to meet 10 years from now. And they're all like on the stairs, like, yeah, we got to meet up again in 10 years. And then they're debating like, well, what time of day? And then McKinley said he already has something scheduled at 11.
I know. So
he's like,
random.
And then he says, I've already moved it twice. I can't change it again.
That's funny.
Anyway, I like that part. Oh, and then this is probably the most famous scene. We didn't cover this yet because it doesn't really advance any of the plots that much. The going into town scene.
I really loved this scene because it was so true to because like I said, like in camp, you're like, it's a 24/7 job.
Yeah.
And you are always on. So like any opportunity to like leave is so huge. And at the time, I mean, because I was from there, from the area, I had a car. So like I was so popular because people just wanted to leave. And like and I knew where I was. I knew how to get places, you know?
Yeah.
So like I was always getting hit up to like take people to like Walmart was like the huge like shopping, and going into like Lake Geneva was like a big deal, you know, or going into the town of Delavan, which was like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like so true. And then of course, you know, I remember you guys, there was this little bar at the end of this really long street. Like it was I think on the road that the camp was on, there was pretty much the only thing at the end of it was camp. And there wasn't anything until you got to kind of like a highway. But at the end of the highway was this bar called the Wagon Wheel. And all the counselors that were of age, and some who weren't, would walk to like the Wagon Wheel, which was this like podunk bar in like Delavan, Wisconsin, and just get trashed. And like that scene kind of reminded me of like how many like accidents and like stories and people falling into the lake and all of this stuff happening like on the way back from the Wagon Wheel, like walking on the road. So that it just brought up a lot of memories, and it was so true. Like that's exactly what ends up happening. Not necessarily like you end up in like a crack
house,
but maybe you know.
Let's talk about how the scene progresses then, because so it starts out they're just like binging on food, and just first they're just eating ice creams actually like pretty normally, and then you see them like stuffing French fries into their mouth like in a ridiculous way like you would see in a comedy. And then you see them smoking cigarettes. Then you see them scoring beer, buying beer. Then you see them smoking weed. And like after the smoking weed is where it starts to get exaggerated and crazy. Because the next step, I think, is they're doing the slippery slope. They're basically reenacting the supposed slippery slope. Because then they're going to score some cocaine in an alley, like Katie and Coop.
Yep.
And then they're mugging an old lady. They mug an old lady after that. And then they're in like.
What's funny is that it's not only the counselors; it's the camp director.
Yeah,
Beth.
Yeah,
beating up the old lady to get money.
Yeah, and then they're all in a heroin den basically, and they're like shooting. They're like fully shooting up, and there's like these really like they all look terrible. They all look like they've been like strung out for like days and days or whatever. And like Janeane Garofalo is like twitching and shit, and like. But then they cut from that to them all happily coming back in the camp truck, like with the really cheerful music playing. It's like love is all right tonight, and then they're like, "How is town?" And like, "Oh, it's awesome, always awesome to get away from camp, even if it's just for an hour." Yeah, so I love that montage. That one, I think that's probably the most famous thing from this movie.
Yeah,
if people have seen something from it, if they haven't seen the movie, they've usually seen this.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, hopefully it didn't bring up too many memories.
That's hilarious.
The next scene we're going to talk about is my favorite. It's like my actual favorite because I reenact it sometimes. There's a scene where Paul Rudd finishes eating in the cafeteria and like knocks his like tray off the table or whatever. And like then Janeane Garofalo is the only one there, the camp director, and she's like, "Clean it up." And like Paul Rudd does this thing like where he's like pretending that his like limbs are weak, and he's like, I can't pick it up. And he kind of staggers around the room like half-assedly picking up one thing at a time, dropping it again. Like he doesn't actually end up cleaning all of it up in the end anyway, but like he's made all these dramatic gestures. And like seriously, if I'm tired, sometimes I reenact that like just to be funny. Like I actually do clean the things up.
It's like a toddler. It's like a child who won't.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Very funny. Very
Paul
funny.
Rudd is so good in this movie. And that scene is, oh my God, he's so good. Anyway. All right. So we're going to do a little tiny Every Rom Com theater just for this one scene in the movie that's very meta. This is pretty much the whole scene we're going to be doing. This is the scene. I called it the big game in my notes. So this is Coop starting out and he's talking to some campers. As everybody knows, today is the big culminating climactic softball game against evil Camp Tiger Claw.
Boo!
We have put together an unlikely team of misfits, and we've been training like crazy all summer. Yeah, it's a motley crew that you'd think would never even be able to win a single game. We had a kooky training period where it seemed like nothing was going to go right. But guys, somehow we made it to the finals. So I say, when those anonymously evil campers from Tiger Claw get here, we give it our best shot, and we try to come from behind at the last minute with some weird trick play that we made up, and we win the game. What do you say, team?
It sounds like pretty well-worn territory.
The whole thing feels kind of trite. I say we forget it.
Is that how everybody feels?
Yeah.
Well, it's fine with me. Okay, so at this point, Coop goes to the rival camp's bus, which is just pulled up, and you see him talking to another coach, and then that coach goes back into the bus, and the bus drives off. And Coop says, "It's no big deal. They were totally cool with it." And all the campers run away, and all the campers walk off. Perfect. I love this. I love this scene. It is, I don't know. Do you guys like this scene? Did you remember?
Was this a play on like Bad News Bears or something?
Like every sports movie. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I loved it.
And I love the anonymously evil campers from Camp Tiger Claw.
Right.
I know. And we'll use that trick that we made up and win the game. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I'll still watch movies like that use this cliche, but I love how much it called it out. I love it so much. So just to sum up, we've gone over parts of the end of the movie before, but we'll sum it up. The talent show, we see the comedian, we see the day by day, and then we see this weird kid that he's the weird kid who hangs out by himself. You see him first holding a chicken and pretending it's a gun, and then Beth tells Susie and Ben that he should be in the talent show, and they're like, "No, oh my god!" But he's apparently been working on some talent all summer. And Sophia, do you want to introduce it?
Sure. So they Susie and Ben agree to put him at the end of the show, and I mean, this is all culminating to the Skylab thing, and guy gets out there and he raises his hands, and all of a sudden wind picks up and wind is blowing everywhere, and he's created this windstorm, and that's when the two girls start kissing, and I don't know, the Skylab thing is going on, and just all this crazy stuff, and Coop comes in and tells Katie.
Does he come in during the wind tunnel?
Well, because they go back outside and there's no wind. It's windy in the theater place, and then there's no wind, and so it's just madness. And then everything gets resolved. Skylab lands, doesn't kill anybody. Everything ends.
Yeah,
and then
the important thing too is that you don't know if you're not sure in the plot whether Skylab was diverted by the science people or whether it was this random magical wind kid.
Yep,
right.
I don't know if there was anything in the commentary about the wind kid because I didn't listen to all. Did you hear anything interesting about him or
There's a thing that people seem to miss, that he's he talks like a robot and he's doing his little experiments, and there's that one camp counselor who is mean to him because he's his brother. Oh. And when Wind Kid comes out right at the beginning of his act, it's that counselor that's like, "Screw you," or whatever, yells at, and that's his brother. But at the end of the whole thing, he's the brother starts doing the slow clap and clapping for his brother, and then everybody, I know. What's really funny is that during the commentary, they had to explain that people missed that line where they're like, "Oh, that's my stupid brother," or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen that movie 3 times. I didn't remember that. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So
the slow clap scene, love that. Always a fan of the slow clap.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, and everybody.
I mean, it would be pretty impressive if somebody could generate wind. Yeah.
That's superpowers. Yeah.
So Skylab's diverted. People we see the next day of camp leaving scene where Beth and Henry get a happy ending. Gail and the kid get a disturbing happy ending. And Katie leaves Coop for Andy yet again. So Serena, I wanted to ask you if there was anything else from the movie that reminded you of your experience working at a camp, just in case we didn't cover something.
I mean, pretty much just the whole thing. I think they were really spot on. I mean, obviously it was very exaggerated, but I think they were really spot on about how the day goes. I know that sounds weird, but like the timing of it, because everything about camp is very timed. You know, like around meals and also you didn't mention the color war.
Oh, the capture the flag or something?
Capture the flag.
Yeah, so capture the flag, not color war. And how like those parts are just a really big part of camp as well. I don't know. They just did a really good job. Obviously, who wrote this went to camp, and that's pretty much what it's like. There is a lot of like sex going on for sure, especially with counselors. I mean, I for one like had multiple relationships you know, during camp, and some of those relationships, some people got married from camp. I remember there were some pregnancies from counselors. I mean, there was all kinds of drama that happened, which is really like right on. So I mean, that they would have like a camp romance is really spot on, because you put young people especially, in this kind of environment, and then of course like this is the stuff that's gonna happen. So I mean, they did a good job with
the
that.
wagon wheel and hooking up. Yes.
Yeah. As far as like exaggerating it, or it is exaggerated, but not really. I mean, in some ways, yes. In other ways, I mean, there's some ridiculous stuff that went on and that happened that I still laugh about and think about today, like 20 years later.
As long as you didn't like ditch kids on the side of the road.
Right.
So which of these characters, if any, can you relate to? Or who do you think you are most like in this movie, like when you were younger and now? And I'll start out. Like, I realized the other day that I now relate to Artie the Beekeeper Solomon as a podcaster, because I did not shower very much this last week. And I was spending all my time working on the podcast. And while we do have an audience, it's probably not as many people as I would like it to be. And it's like, I don't actually get any immediate feedback from most of them, because like it kind of just goes out there. Right. And like sometimes I'll hear from them. So I relate to Artie now and his desire to broadcast his ideas. And when I was younger, okay, Serena, you did call me on it. I did relate to Abby when I was younger. I wouldn't make out with just anybody, but I was definitely motivated by making out. So I have an affection for Abby, and the purity of her sluthood is very inspiring.
What about you, Serena, as a camp counselor?
I don't know. I don't think I really was any of these characters. If anything, like I felt like I related the most to Beth. The camp director. Maybe because at one point I was kind of more of the removed boss, like my last summer there. So yeah, I don't know. I think I was a pretty average counselor. Like I had some drama, but not a lot. Like I don't think I fell into any big cliches.
Sophia, like, do you relate to any of these characters? And it doesn't have to be like you are just like them. Just there's some aspect.
If I were to relate to any remotely, it'd be Beth.
And like, what qualities of hers? Just like,
I think she does care about like keeping it together a little bit, and I like her sweet little romance with Henry, and their cute little trying to impress each other with,
yeah.
She learned about astrophysics. He learned about camp directors, and
like she's kind of nerdy. There's also like a hippie quality to her.
Oh yeah,
well.
I know. I love her clothes. I love her little shirt and her little bell bottoms. And production note, she wore that for 28 days straight, and she said it stank at the end of it, and it was just she was so sick of those clothes.
Well,
I mean, all of them.
They were also like apparently like drinking and like having parties all the time too. So like the clothes probably suffered from that as well.
Gross.
So okay, so let's see. So do you guys have any favorite subplot or couple in the movie, or like?
I feel like I answered that.
Like
earlier.
Beth and Henry, or
Beth and Henry. Yeah. I like the Victor, Neil, Abby bits.
McKinley and Ben.
Yeah, McKinley and Ben is like one of my two favorites. That and the Victor and Abby and Neil raft adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the raft.
That grew on me too, though, because I think the first time I saw the movie, the Victor and Abby and Neil theme didn't stick out to me, but this time it was my favorite bit. Like, I just loved it. Okay, so, and then just one more thing about the movie. a couple articles pointed out that this movie is not just a summer camp movie, but it's kind of like a Jewish summer camp movie, which is like similar to, we were talking about Dirty Dancing. It's set at a Jewish resort, but it's a lot less obvious in Dirty Dancing. In this movie, there's a lot of references to like Judaism, and like in terms of like they're speaking Yiddish and like Hebrew at a certain time. And like the kid that does the radio is saying like, you can hear me like on Jewish day school radio or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
And he says, I love that you're sometimes for no reason late to shul. And then like, but one of the funniest parts is where Beth is listing like these increasingly absurd camper names that are all supposed to be kind of like Jewish names. Apparently one of them was like somebody Azaria. Hank Azaria actually went to that camp when he was little, apparently. And
really?
saw some plaque with his name on it. And so they put that in as a call out to him. And
that's hilarious.
Yeah, but then Beth's list starts getting weirder, and she's like, Rachel Clipper Hofferman. I think she might have just been making names up. Yeah. I don't know.
I think she was improvising, and then there was like a wall that had campers' names on them, and so she was just reading off some of them too, and combination of all that.
That's funny. Anyway. Yeah, I didn't really know a lot about camp culture or summer camps before I started working at one, and then I started to learn so much about it. And the last year I was there, my assistant director had come from a Jewish camping background, and she was pretty young. This was like her first assistant director position, and now she actually and we're still friends, we still communicate. She's actually like the director of a huge Jewish camp in Wisconsin.
Oh, nice.
I think JCC is like a Jewish camping organization, and I learned so much from her about, because she grew up going to Jewish camp, and then she went on that summer at House in the Woods, she hired some of her former campers to be counselors. So I learned from them just how important Jewish camp is to Jewish communities and Jewish youth that are growing up. Because for them, it's a lot of, it's keeping alive some traditions that they wouldn't always be associated with in their home life. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's like they would learn more about their religion. And also it was really pushed that they kept in contact and had like a worldwide, if not like country community. So I didn't know anything about that. I didn't realize that was such a huge thing. And then over the years, I never did, but you don't need to be Jewish to go to a lot of these summer camps. I mean, I guess it helps. Or one of the reasons you would want to. And the same way with the counselors, you don't necessarily have to be Jewish to be a counselor. So she had asked me several times if I wanted to come and work at her camp. I never did, because I was like, House in the Wood was kind of like my thing. But it is like I kind of liked that about this, that it was kind of, I'm assuming that maybe the writers are Jewish and went to Jewish camp.
Yeah,
that's why they put that in there. But no, I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I didn't know that it was such a huge thing, and it really is.
So just really quick, a note on the prequel and sequel series on Netflix. I'm not going to spoil anything about them, but I just want to say Wet Hot American Summer First Day of Camp came out first. It's still on Netflix, and it adds like a lot of really unexpected storylines and character origins. Like you find out like how the talking can came to be, and it's weird. And you find out how Andy and Katie got together because they haven't been together all camp. You find out who are the anonymously evil campers over at Camp Tiger Claw and the counselors. And there's like weird thriller conspiracy elements. It's like wild. And there's some like new cast members and characters. Like most of I think maybe even all of the people from the first movie, the counselors, actually came back. But there's some new characters added. Jason Schwartzman appears in it, Lake Bell, Josh Charles, Chris Pine, John Hamm. There's more. Like there's more famous people. I just didn't want to list them all. But it's definitely if you like this movie, it's definitely worth watching. And then 10 years later was the next one to come out. It's riffing on the reunion idea they had in this movie. And in that one, we have some new cast members. Adam Scott replaces Bradley Cooper. Alyssa Milano shows up. Melanie Linsky is in the cast.
Love her.
And then Ronald Reagan is a character in this movie, and he's played by Michael Showalter. So, like, it's going to go to strange places when Ronald Reagan shows up as part of the movie.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, so that's 10 years later. And I guess it's time to go to our double feature recommendations. Okay, so for double feature recommendations, my first double feature recommendation is to watch the Sleepaway Camp movies 1 through 3. I was introduced to that by my good old friend Nathan Buck, who's a big horror buff. And it was like some of the first horror movies I ever saw. And it's almost a satire of camp horror movies. Like, it is a horror movie, but it does kind of cheekily play on like the Friday the 13th movies a little bit too. And it's very over the top, but it has that similar camping atmosphere. So I think if you like horror movies, it would play really well against Wet Hot American Summer. It's definitely dealing with a lot of the same kind of tropes. And then my other recommendations are pretty obvious. I recommend you watch Wet Hot American Summer First Day of Camp and Wet Hot American Summer 10 Years Later, because it really adds and fleshes out this universe, and like you get to see more of these characters and even new characters coming into the plot.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm so glad I saved this. Indian Summer. I was going to do it last time when we talked about Twister because Bill Paxton is in it. Diane Lane, Vincent Spano. Oh, what's her name? Elizabeth Perkins. I forgot what year it came out, but it's a group of friends who were campers together, went to camp together. They've stayed friends, and now they're going back for kind of a little, just the 8 of them reunion. And Lou is the camp director owner, and that's played by Alan Arkin, whom I love. And I love this film. It's just kind of this, like, has nostalgia to it. They do some flashback, and anyway, that's a good one. The Parent Trap, the original one, because they start out at camp, and I love that whole camp scene and sequence and all that, and it, so that's a lot of fun. And then it's not camp like out in the woods, but it's space camp. I watched that film a gazillion times as a kid, and it's a true place. And my sister-in-law went to space camp.
Nice.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Fun. She loved it. I mean, I feel like, not that she looks like any one of those characters in the Nerd Kids with the astrophysicist, but I feel like that would have been right up her alley as far as, like, she loved space camp because it was people who, like, they like to learn, and you weren't a weirdo if you wanted to learn things.
All right. Well, my picks are obviously, if you've seen Meatballs, this is like
I actually haven't. So you've seen Meatballs?
Really? You haven't?
I do want to see it now. Yeah, I want to see it now. Tell us about it. Tell us about
it. I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time, but this movie, it's obviously taken so much from that movie, and that's also kind of a comedy. So yeah, definitely see that. I picked Dazed and Confused because as I was watching this, it just had a similar setup because it takes place in like one day or in like one short period of time. And it's like in Dazed and Confused, it's like the last day of school. And in this movie, it's the last day of camp. So for some reason, I was just seeing like a lot of parallels.
Sure.
And it made me want to watch Dazed and Confused while I was watching this. I don't know why.
And the the 70s like clothing in the period.
Yeah, exactly. And it just had like a lot of the same like cliche characters in both movies that, I guess come out that were popular in the 70s and 80s. And I love that movie. But and then my last pick is Little Darlings. Have you guys seen Little Darlings?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Really? I'm so surprised. I feel like, Jennifer, you would love this movie.
Okay.
Because it again goes, I'm like, I don't know why this was such a plot point in the 70s and 80s, but people losing their virginity. It was such a huge thing. And I feel like I don't know, but are teenage movies like that now as well? Like losing your virginity
not
was
as
like
much. No.
Was like a game
so.
or something that you like had to happen, and like that's what Little Darlings takes place at camp, and it's about 2 girls that are competing basically of who can lose their virginity first. And wow. I remember it just because I remember watching it a lot when I was being on TV and watching it when I was a kid, and like me thinking that that's what camp was about having sex and
that's why you
trying to
signed
have
up
sex.
to be a counselor.
Yeah, which it turns out is actually true.
Great.
Maybe not so much for the campers, because this Little Darlings is about the campers.
Yeah.
But definitely, for the counselors.
Yes, I could see that. Yeah. Like anytime, like you said, anytime you get people around 18, 19 together, like in large groups for like a concentrated period of time, things go down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so thanks for all the cool recommendations, guys, and for like being here today. I'm just going to make an announcement that like Sophia and Serena might not be on the podcast for a little while because they're going to be pretty busy with some other work and projects that they've got going on. But I will be coming back with some guest hosts throughout the fall, including we're planning to do a horror rom-com. So like rom and these are going to be more like rom-coms than some of the ones we did for the summer romance series. So trust me on that. And we might do some traditional ones too, upcoming. And please feel free to write in with suggestions too. You can reach us at feedback@everyromcom.com. And you can always find the podcast at everyromcom.com or on Apple Podcasts or pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks a lot, guys, again.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss you guys when you're busy for a while. So
yeah, I'll be back. We'll be back.
Okay. We'll be in.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.